फॉरवर्ड कैसे होगा स्लाइड्स? I'll request people to maybe move forward because others will join in. Slides. Just 1 second, I just check. Keyboard, sir. नहीं वो जो अभी प्रोजेक्शन कैसे आ रहा है? प्रोजेक्शन तो उसमें आ रहा है, उधर से आ रहा है. So good evening, everyone. I think my apologies for delay start. Delhi is notorious for late coming. We didn't anticipate so much of delay. Still, a lot of people are saying we are on the way, but I think in the interest of time, we need to start. So good evening, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome the esteemed panel today, and we are all very eagerly waiting to hear from them, and it's also my privilege to introduce our company. So I'll not take much time, but because people are on the way, maybe I'll take a little bit more time than what I would have normally taken. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Gita to be moderator. We have been working with Gita on our National Student Design Competition, and right now we are in the 3rd edition of that. And the response from all the students have been overwhelming, and it's every year we are seeing a good growth coming. And then we have esteemed panel of, I'll just use the first name, Mili, Charul, Madam Namrita Kalsi, Hina, and Sonali, and we are very eagerly waiting to hear from them about whatever great work they have, great ideas they have, and would like to hear on that. But just I'll take a few minutes to introduce about ourselves, because we have ourselves been also going through a lot of changes. And as we say in architecture, the only thing constant is change, but that starts from us also. So I'm Chakresh Chen. I did architecture, and now for almost 37 years into this space only, helping architects utilize technology. So now we have just gone through major change, and I'll probably bring that slide up. So a lot of you probably know CAD Studio, and then last 10 years we've been talking about Capricorn, but recently now we have, so instead of taking the entire journey, I'll just like to talk more about what we are today. So we have now become a part of a global group of Akans and WinZero. So with that, now we are present across the world in 18 countries. So like us as Capricorn, we have now merged with Arcans and WinZero, and today, so we are now present in Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So as a group, now we are serving more than 4 lakh users like yourself across the world, and with 50 offices present, and so it's a worldwide group with people speaking diverse language. So diversity is now becoming one major theme, and today we'll also like to see a very different kind of a webinar. Typically, we have been running very technology-centric meetings and talk about technology, but today it's all about people, and that's what we like to hear. And so as a group, we are now owned by a French group, Monier, who are the owner of all this group. And Arcans is one division, which is a digital initiative under Monier. And so without taking too much of time, I'd like to now invite Gita to conduct the session and introduce herself and all the panel there. Yeah. Do you want someone to forward the slides?
Not yet. I'll come to the slides.
Okay.
Yeah. Chakresh, you finished sooner than I thought you would. Thanks, and good evening, everybody. It's nice to see so many young friends who I met 10 years or 13 years ago and got reintroduced to them now. I would never have recognized any of you if I saw you outside. Good you told me your names, and I'm glad to see other friends also in the audience, and a fantastic panel. I'll begin with, I'm known for quizzing. These guys know me for quizzing, so I'm going to begin with 3 quiz questions. Let's not shout out the answer because there's a prize from Capricorn. So let's have your hands up, and I hope the prize is, I'm sure the prize will be nice. So let's have your hands up, and I'll come to you and kind of get your answers, and if you get it right, Shweta will organize for the prizes, right? So beginning with, if I was to ask you, what is the percentage of architectural offices that use BIM in India? We are, after all, at an event that Capricorn has organized, so it's fair that I ask some technology-based questions. Anybody who can tell me what is the percentage of architectural offices that use BIM in India? I'll take plus or minus 10% as an answer.
I think I'll go by 4%.
4%. 5%. Farad, I hope you got your number right. You gave me a number. Anybody else would like to try?
12.
12%. Anybody else? Anybody else would like to try? I'm not saying whether these are right answers or wrong answers. Yes, Amritansh.
3%.
3%. Kya ho raha hai, Farad? Okay, let me at least tell you it's much higher than that. Anybody else wants to try? Yes.
30%.
Bang on. Is that right? 30%? So she wins herself. So this is Capricorn's figure. So I'm presuming it should be fairly there. Arre, that's not fair. But anyway, we'll give her a prize, right? Yeah. Okay, the next question. Who is considered to be the father of BIM? In the sense of, not really the father of BIM, but I'd like you to say, who introduced BIM to architecture? Not in India. Not in India, worldwide. Who introduced BIM to architecture? Chakresh, the wittiest answer should also get a prize. Anybody giving me the answer? You can Google. You can use your phones, phone a friend, whatever. Anybody? Farad has given me the answer. Patrick McLeany. But we'll give Sonali the prize for saying Chakresh. Okay, the last question. Which is the biggest facility or complex that's been built using BIM in India? In India. Well, BIM. Farhad, तुमको answer देना पड़ेगा. They are saying Surat Diamond Bourse is the largest facility that used BIM. Wrong answer, right? According to you. Sonali है, सोच लो. Okay. We'll keep the diamond bourse out of it. I'll give you 3 options: ACOM, DMRC, or BIAL, BIAL. It has to be one of the 3, so I'm not going to say which one's right. Each of you can tell me your answers. ACOM bola, kisne BIAL bola? Charul said. Anybody else giving me the third answer, which is DMRC? No, but Charul gets herself a prize. It is BIAL, and you followed up with it, but...
Because Ecom is a company, right? It is not a facility.
So that was the idea. That was the idea, to give a clue that will be a sitter. So that's fine. So yeah, that brings me to this evening's session, where what we thought we'd do is not have a formal introduction where you get to know about the different awards the panelists have won and so on, but get to know them more as people, like he said. So we have a couple of slides where we talk about our lives and our journeys, just a few slides. So I'm going to talk about myself first. So I'm currently known for these 2 crazy feats. I walked from Kolkata to Delhi, and thanks. And I walked from Kolkata to Dhaka across the borders as well. All alone. I had a team that went with me. That's a long story, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but maybe over dinner. And so that was 2,572,420 steps in the first walk, and 1,700 kilometers across 7 states. It was a beautiful journey, and I think it's changed me immensely as a person. So obviously that goes first as a part of my bio now anywhere. And it's kind of the beginning, although it was so many steps, it's kind of the beginning of the rest of my life. And I'm hoping that everywhere I speak, I'll have people like you joining me in the different things that I do as I go along. Yes, so these are some images from the walk. It was like a reality show of sorts, because there was a lot happening on social media. People were following and getting to know the different things I did. Was stopping with for conversations with women, with older people. We had presentations that I carried with me where I did speak to different segments of population, whether it was children, whether it was schools, telling them about design and architecture. And the one revelation that I'd like to share today is, for the rest of the country, we architects don't matter or don't exist. And that's the sad reality. They don't even know that there is someone called an architect. And that is why there's a huge role that we need to play in coming together and making our presence felt a lot more in communities. That's what I'd like to say with this. Who am I as a person? Besides that, I do run, I do walk. Obviously, I would have to do that to be able to undertake a journey like that. I started running at the age of 45. I'm 55 today, and I did this crazy stunt when I was 53. That's my daughter-in-law and me had a jigsaw puzzle. That was the last piece we were putting together. So we do a lot of, I enjoy puzzles, crosswords. Okay, another quiz question. We have one more prize. We won't give Sonali a prize. We'll give it to somebody else. That blue plan in the center is a jigsaw puzzle. Can you tell me what the plan is of? It's a house? Who? Okay. Somebody, anybody else? Yes.
Is it falling water?
It is falling water. If you read closely, you'll see Bear Run somewhere there. So the front of it is a plan, or rather the back of one side of it is a plan, and the other side of it is the photograph of the building. And we enjoyed doing this. Both sides really had fun. And of course, anything that, and a lot of reading and things like that that I do. And that's my team. So I run an organization called Ethos, which works, we're also working with Capricorn, like Chakresh just said. We have always worked as a virtual office, so we actually thrived during COVID. While all of you were struggling to figure out what the hell Zoom was, we were so comfortable with it because we've been using it for a long time. We have a vertical which runs design competitions, quizzes, and things like that. We have a vertical that is in the space of online learning. We are creating content for industry. And the fourth vertical, of course, is the foundation under which this walk happened. One curious point here that you'll notice from this is it's an all-women team. It was not a bias. We welcomed, what do you call, applications from anybody, but it's strange that women gravitated more towards what we do as a vertical. So that's really me, and I think I've taken about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll give that same kind of time to everybody here. We'll go on with Namrita ji, if you can come up and speak about yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit there and come back after.
Is it on?
The slides, right? We can just go to the next. Yeah.
So with my word, I've written invention and reinvention. That has been the something which I experienced in my life, because life had offered me a Pandora's box. And I had to constantly invent and reinvent myself to face the discomfort zone. So we had graduated in 1984. So everybody knows that we had the college with starry eyes, but what we actually faced was the peak of terrorism. So at that point of time, what made us, pass that time and still do some meaningful work was the humanitarian work. And it was with the help of this humanitarian work that we were able to, help people overcome the loss and the expectations where there was a huge gap. For example, the children were not going to school, the colleges were closed, the teachers were not coming to for classes. So that was the time that with the help of voluntary, help, that we were trying to give education to the people and encourage them to come to the classes, or to collect food, clothing, and shelter for disaster management, be it the floods, or give free medicines to the people who really needed them, because there were not much jobs around and the businesses had closed. And a lot of people had lost their parents or their brothers. So that was the time the women were facing difficulty in getting married. So there was a camp organized in which free weddings were performed for poor women. Thereafter, some time, this is a life journey, we found that the situation is getting better, but people were not yet convinced about it. So it was through sports and counseling in which we tried to build the social fabric and convince people that things are now back to normal. There was a movie also, Ki Halat Theek Hai, Punjabi movie. So that was the time where we were. So thereafter, we tried to inculcate, arts and superstition, which had steeped in deeply into the social fabric at that point of time. I was always a very shy and an introvert and a reserved person. But when I came to Delhi, I had to, be a mentor, in the sense that I became a social connector, in which we tried to connect those people who were recently posted to Government of India and were feeling a slightly, how to fit into the society over here, or there are some retired people or old people who are feeling alienated. Okay, this is slightly old slide. Everybody feels that, we are our next gen is losing the touch with our old culture. So the culture also means like dance, drama, uh, clothes, music, dancing, and arts, rangoli, festivals. So it is through event management and an entertaining method to get the people, in touch with their culture. So last of all, what I'm doing currently, that I'm grandparenting. That's my next generation. And we are trying to pass on the baton down to the fact that there's a rock star there and I'm trying to finish his ensemble by planting a guitar on his arm. So this is my persona away from my, what you say, professional life.
Thanks, Namrita. That was so to realize that you graduate and you come into a world where profession is not priority, but there's so much else that life is priority. And then I'm sure all those who kind of graduated in the COVID time during the pandemic would have felt a similar sense of loss. Sonali, you're on next. Thanks. Which one? Enter. Hi. So, as you know, I'm a founding partner of Morphogenesis, along with Manit, who was my classmate, and then later my husband. And we are the two partners at Morphogenesis today. So, this is just capturing almost everything that is most important to me. My dogs, and especially when you get grown-up kids and they've gone away, and one is away for 8 years in the US, one's away for 6 years. Honestly, I come back home, I'm by the way, obsessed with Morphogenesis, just obsessed. And the obsession just increases day by day. So if I didn't have these two dogs, I would never come home. So full-time obsession. And in case you're wondering why they look so big, they are bull mastiffs, they are giant, they are 70 kilos each, and I love them. And the second picture is 4 of us. And we have one thing in common other than the fact that we are a family, that we are all workaholics. So we have a rule that we go away for a 2-day holiday together with each other. And this was right through even when they were in college. We go away every 3 months for 2 to 3 days together, because that's the only time we ever speak to each other, because we are just so obsessed with work. We come home, play with the dogs, and dinner, and then everybody off to their rooms. So really bonding happens on these holidays. None of us, except for Manit, who's amateur golfer, none of us play golf. This is just posing. Okay. Then that's Manit and me. We are partners, and because, as I said to you, I am obsessed with my profession, with my work, with my company, and we are partners also in the company. So obviously most of my day goes with him. Maybe a little bit different than people who don't work together, because it's office together and home together and holiday together. So, and then there's a lot of travel, which the reason these pictures are here is that when the kids were growing up, I was working as much as I do now, which is maybe 10 to 12 hours a day. But other than that, I would take up no assignment that required me to travel away from home. Ever. I would not come to an event which is outside. In fact, I don't go to any event altogether, because then if you're coming home at 8 o'clock and then you start thinking that you have to go to an evening like this, not going to happen, because then it was the kids. So recently, I take every opportunity to travel, and even if I get invited to speak in Germany for like some random nonsense, I'll just take the opportunity and go. So, because it's this newfound sense of freedom with grown-up kids. So that's that. I like to go to a lot of art galleries and shows, and this is something, again, I restricted over the years because made place for nothing except work and children. So you see the bottom third picture. That's like an installation I was seeing in Milan. And even this weekend, I was at the Museum of Goa seeing some installations there. So art, which was a really passionate thing I was involved in, maybe till my mid-20s, has refound its place back in my life. And that's why I chose to put that picture. There's a bottle of wine at the end, and which comes very close to my obsession with morphogenesis. And then I've been talking about my obsession, so these are like all kinds of work. Some old, the one in the middle is Pearl Academy of Fashion. Another one in Kasoli, bottom left, is 20 years old. So some high-rise, institutional, offices, like I do all kinds of work. All kinds of work that requires architecture is what I do. The building bottom right is a complete net zero building, has no electrical connection, nothing. And it's the complete production factory for forest essentials. Every forest essential product you see anywhere in the world is produced here. A complete net zero building. I'll just go from left to right. There's Infosys in Nagpur. This is AIM. Once the first 4 buildings are complete, it is aiming to be net zero. Then there's the private residences, which I love doing. Private residences came into my life, like mostly all firms will start with a private residence, but private residences came into my life like a decade and a half after I started practice, and I really enjoy doing them. So I do about 2-3 per year. Then right is British School, and then Surat Diamond Boards in the middle, first picture. Wipro campus. After that, the right-hand side is a really unique project. Like I got hired somebody got very inspired by Marina Bay Sands, and a bunch of existing buildings and a bunch of new buildings had the challenging task to suddenly create a deck on top. And the only brief was it has to be bigger than Marina Bay Sands. So that's the deck on top of 5 towers, some old, some new. A clubhouse, an institute of hospitality, and bottom right is a phenomenally close to my heart project. It's Dakshina Valley Foundation School, which teaches kids, which only teaches kids whose parents are below poverty line, and they teach them, I know, a little bit like the Kota training centers, but it's much nicer, trust me. And only below poverty line kids who want to go to engineering school and medical school, and it has a 98% success rate. So it's outside Pune. So this is the first phase, which is complete, and it's fully residential. So it's a fun project I enjoyed. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonali. So obviously, when she said work is an obsession, that's evident. 2 of her 4 slides were about her work. So yeah, over to you, Mili.
Great, Sonali. And I'm a big fan of Forest Essentials, so it's even better to know that, it's a net zero. So thanks, and it's great to be amongst so many illustrious women. So my name is Mili Majumdar. In my current role, I'm part of Green Business Certification Institute, which is affiliated to the US Green Building Council, and we operate the lead green building rating program globally in about 180 countries. And prior to my current role here, I was with Teddy for about 23 years. So I always feel, when I began my journey, and we were generally talking about women, education, and I was one of the very fortunate one who had extremely, kind of good parents who understood the value of education, and I'm grateful to them that I got the education which brings me here also. So beginning of a journey, education matters, and this is when I was getting my master's degree in civil engineering from IIT Chennai. And since then, it has been, and then a very interesting story. I didn't know what TERI was, so my only thing in life was that I have to get a job. And, me and my husband, Snigdha, Chakresh ji knows Snigdha very well. So we were in the same college and we had to get married, and he was working in Delhi. So my only thing was that I had to get a job in Delhi and I had to get married. So he started applying for me, and in some common friends, there was Sanjay Mande, who was a former colleague. Then Snigdha told me, there is Sunday, Mondays there in this organization called Teddy, so I'm applying for you there. Then I get a call one day that you come and interview with us. So I meet Dr. Ajay Mathur, who is now chairperson, president of ISA, International Solar Alliance. I meet Dr. Veena Joshi. I meet Dr. R.K. Pachori, and I get the job. And that was the starting of my journey in Teddy, where I spent, I joined as a research associate and I left as a senior director, spending 23 years. And I got a lot of opportunity to represent Teddy, in different media, in different forum. And it was the start of a journey on green buildings. Nobody knew about it that point in time. And it was a great, exhilarating journey. And in my work, I have traveled to several places. These are some of the interesting work, like after tsunami happened, we were doing a project for UN, and where we had to travel to Maldives, which was also affected by tsunami. And this was, in a small aircraft we went to see those islands which were impacted. And, like very interesting use of local materials from the sea, the shells that were used to build walls. And there you can really feel what sustainability is, because when there is no resource and it's such a far off place where you can only commute through, small airplanes or no land connection, what sustainability really means. And that was really, deeply awakening for me. And it has been also followed through in terms of interventions in different works that I have done throughout my life. Some memories never come back. These are two distinct memories, visiting the World Trade Tower, which is no longer there, and one of the largest aquariums in Berlin Hotel in Radisson, which broke open. And 1,500 exotic aquatic animals lost their lives. So I had been there, but some memories never, you cannot relive them. So enjoy every moment of the life. There were certain wow moments, and I just want to take this opportunity, like to say, the former president of India, Pranab Mukherjee, he belonged to the same small town that I have grown up in, which is in a small, district in West Bengal. And and my grandfather was a principal of the college there, and Pranab Mukherjee was his student. So I went to meet him, to invite him for the Griha conference, which he agreed to. And you won't believe, when I told him about my grandfather, he remembered his name. He remembered my father's pet name, because they were together. And he kind of remembered each and every knickknacks, about how my grandfather used to teach. I mean, such a great man, and being the president of India and remembering, it really kind of, tells you about the greatness of a person. And of course, in my role, I have been in touch with several great people, and it has been a really privileged, career that I have had. And I can't thank enough, all my colleagues and my seniors in whatever I have done. Well, one of the things, you would see me always in a sari, and I feel, being Indian is very important. There are certain traditions you maintain. So even when I go to US in conferences, when I'm speaking, I always tend to wear my saris and my jewelry. That's, one of the signature things that I follow, and I love doing it. Have been very privileged to be recognized by different, organizations, institutions, and it's really humbling to be honored. Travel certainly adds to experience, and you take them with you in your work, in your personal life, everywhere. Also, as a researcher, I feel, and also in our profession, it's very important to publish, to engage and to spread the knowledge, or you perish and your legacy doesn't leave. So that has also been, one of my key things. And I get inspired by all the women I come in touch with, and my colleagues, whom I have worked with, they're also in, several good places, like Dr. Hina Zia, who is here. She was a very dear colleague of mine in Teddy, and I'm really happy that all of them are doing so well. Um, Dare to Dream. So, as a child, I used to sing, and never I thought that I can do that again. So, during COVID times, I started. And then now I have about 6 or 7 music videos that I have done. And, so this was my first one, which had about 15,000 views. I mean, you can do it if you want. And finally, these are my 2 heartbeats that keep me going, my daughter and my pet Ginger. So thank you so much. That's about me.
Thanks, Mili. Thank you. That was a nice insight into your journey. And I think she had to change her sari today because her ginger ran away with, with the other sari that she planned. Charul, yours.
Hello everyone, good evening. Well, I'm Charul Shukla. I think I've written quite a lot about me. So I'll just tell, basically I'm a very enthusiastic person. I like, sorry, I'm going on forward. Yeah. So I like to look forward to each day with a renewed vigor and to see brightness in everything. And that is what can describe me. Qualified as an architect, I've been working with Airports Authority of India. Right now I'm an executive director planning there. And I have an experience of about 34 years in aviation. I've done my graduation from Maulana Azan's National Institute of Technology in the year 1986. And there are other credentials to this thing, which I think I'll skip. And so I'll just a little bit about my work, because my work is a little different, because we design airports. So the airports basically contains, you have greenfield airports and you have a brownfield airports. And maybe I'll come to that later when we are discussing about it. The projects that I have done include a lot of infrastructure related to aviation, like the master planning, the airside, seaside developments, new terminal buildings, modification, expansion of airports, etc. And also one thing which think that there's this exponential growth of Indian aviation, and this could be stymied if by the capacity constraint, and therefore capacity is being created, upgraded ahead of the time. And introduction of digital technology in line with global trends has contributed largely to make India as one of the fastest growing aviation market in the world. So this is just a typical master plan. I just wanted to explain to you in case people would not be knowing over here. So there's a runway, there's an air side and there is city side. And you have these runways, aprons, parallel taxi track, rapid exit taxi track, which is on the air side. And then you have the fire station, ATC tower, terminal buildings, cargo terminal and all, which is on the city side. So this is the thing that we developed. Like I've been working on the same kind of a thing for the last 34 years. Of course, there have been many changes and many new developments also. Apart from my office, now I think I'll come to the interesting part because that was a little boring. So this has been associated with the Kalyanmi. That's the women's wing of Airports Authority of India. And it's basically a congregation of all lady employees and spouses of male employees. And Kalyanmi does lots of CSR activities for Airports Authority of India. And as Secretary Kalyanmi, I have spearheaded and successfully completed 2 projects as part of social commitments concerning girls and women from the weaker section of society. One is the cervical screening checkup camps, and the other is installation of sanitary napkin machines and incinerators and awareness camps. So these things we have done in because this Kalyanmi is all over India. So the first project we did in 16 airport cities, like wherever the airport is there, our people are there. So and the other one is in the 20 airport cities that we have done that. A little bit about me. So this is, I'm basically an extrovert. Like Namrita just said, she's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. The other way around. I love making friends, celebrating life. I love adventure. I love to travel. So yeah, and empathy for all living creatures. I love all animals, all birds, whatever is living. I love colors, of course, fascinate me a lot. I love adding colors to blank canvas. This is also like a hobby which I started again, like I said, during my college days, where I started like 4 or 5 years back. So I started to paint. So whenever now I'm stressed up and all, I just pick up a canvas and I start painting. And this is of course, my family and my support system. My 2 daughters, my husband. My dog, of course, is not there anymore. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Charul. Dogs seem to be, pets seem to be a common thread between all of us too, besides other things. Hina, you also have a ginger, I was told.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's truly an honor to be here amongst such an august gathering. And special mention to Mili ma'am, and forever she'll remain my Mili ma'am, because Terry was the first organization I joined. I am currently a professor and dean, and I've been told I'm the youngest dean, and initially I didn't realize that why all my other fellow deans are really, I faced all kinds of different, initially I couldn't understand what is the problem, and then I realized I happen to be at least 12, 15 years younger. So I became dean at 39, and they were all either in late 50s or 60s. I represent a Muslim girl from a very small town, which is no more in the sense naam uska bhat gaya, because it's called Faizabad, and it has become Ayodhya. So Faizabad doesn't exist now. In my batch of 120 students in my school, nobody talked about architecture, and everybody was like, either they wanted to become engineer or doctor, the usual work field, and I was the only one who wanted to explore. Somehow I was fascinated by buildings. So I joined architecture from Aligarh Muslim University, and then I wanted to go for higher education, but my father didn't want me to go. But my mom supported, and I went on to study. I cleared both. I got admission in both SPA Delhi and IIT Roorkee, but I then went on to do my master's in planning from IIT Roorkee, and then continued with PhD. So for 1 year, my father didn't spoke to me. He was so upset. He wanted me to get into practice straight away, and I was very curious. I wanted to explore so many things, and then energy thing happened. That was my thesis topic, and that brought me to Terry. So that's the whole connect. I worked with Terry under the mentorship of Mili. She was my director and my friend and the best mentor I could have ever thought of. So from there, I then moved on for I think about 10 years. I worked with Terry. Then I moved when Mili left, so I also left with her, followed Mili's footstep, and then I went to full-time academia in 2017. So it's been which I had never thought that I'd come to full-time academia. Academia I loved, but I had never imagined. So it just happened. Now I'm a very boring kind of a teacher, because that's my 14-year daughter keeps telling me every single day that you are a very boring teacher. 24/7, you're always working, interacting with students, working on projects. Yeah, I'm learning every day. I'm learning new subject. Two things keep me sane apart from my family and support system. And I'm married in a huge, big family, which is very interesting. I have the pleasure of being married in a joint family, and we've maintained the ethos. I successfully raised 2 kids who are not mine, but now they are all. One is in Canada, one is in the US, and they're doing very well professionally and personally. In my current role, I would say I'm often asking the tough questions sometimes, apart from architecture, because these are the things we can't, seeing the state, I mean, I'm very interested in the general politics and the situation of the society, and architecture and built environment professionals have to deal with in the daily lives. They have to ask these tough questions, and that's why you can see some of these, which many of you might find it boring, but yeah, I keep on pushing them, engaging them through different ways and in my program, including in some of the design studios at the master's level, particularly in urban regeneration branch and planning exercises. I'm married to a media professional and he's traveling all the time. I prefer not to travel these days, though I love traveling, and I'm hoping I'll come to that stage and I'll explore the freedom which I get. And books and biryani keep me sane. I am known for I'm a good cook. So I'm known in some of the places, I'm known for my variety of different kinds of biryanis. So any quick recipes, if anyone wants, I can give any time. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hina. Can we have all the women up here, please? So that's our powerhouse panel for this evening. Can we have all of you up here? Any questions anybody has on this segment so far? I have a few, but if anybody has, I'd be happy to take them. No, not really.
I wanted to ask Sonali, I thought I'll ask offline, but the particular project that you spoke about, which is a manufacturing unit and it has no electricity.
Forest Essentials.
So I would want to know some bit more about it, if you can please share. I mean, now or later, whatever.
You can take a mic there.
So it's entirely solar powered. So first thing was to, of course, was to reduce the need for energy. So passive architecture went a long way. Also, it's not so difficult in this perfect climate, which is 2 hours up on a hill, post Rishikesh. And most of the products are Ayurvedic. So there is not that, other than very little need for air conditioning, most of it works on cross ventilation. So for example, when you're boiling the oils and things like that, it's all cross ventilated. Certain perfumes and things, very little need for air conditioning. So the need was reduced, then dealt with passively, and then finally we generate solar power, which is actually a little bit surplus than what the factory requires.
Thanks. That would have been my question to Sonali as well. Anybody else? Yes.
Before actually I ask my question, I would just like to say that a small line which I would say is that when men were busy fighting stupid wars, women were busy observing and learning, right? And learning, right? And this is pretty adamant when I hear all of you. And so I personally have been like, I'm an architect, but I've been pretty much involved in BIM. So the artistic and the architecture side of me has kind of revived while hearing all of you. So if you could add some more lines, the question is generally to like open to all the. Yes, I know there is, because we are in Capricorn, right? And that's why this is more of a personal and a side on your side. If you could give me a little insight on how I could actually improve my artistic and the architect side.
So I thought BIM was part of that story.
No, it is. It's a process, definitely, and it is. But at times when what like ma'am said about efficiency, ecology, and looking at sociology, looking at people, right? Because in the end of the day, sure, we are building buildings, but it's for the people who we look at, and we tend to miss out people. So if you could just.
Which is, yeah, that what was the biggest regret in my life? My biggest regret is that I was a fantastic painter and a very good sketcher, which I have stopped doing. So that is my biggest regret. You are at this point of time at the beginning of your career ladder. So I would suggest pick up a pencil. That's the start
Lovely.
of creativity.
Namrita, you can carry on and talk to us about your position at NDMC and as you know, you assuming the responsibility that you did. Would you like to tell us something more about?
The way the seminar had been positioned, so they said that something which you cherish what you have done in your life. In my earlier session, I had only covered, my personal persona. So now I would like to talk about my professional work. I really feel very proud and very privileged to have worked in New Delhi Municipal Council, which is the seat of power of the country as chief architect. Because that's the place where the president, the prime minister, the parliament, LBZ and countless other landmarks of the country are taking place. And it was a posting which was a posting of paradox. It sincerely challenged all my, whatever things I had learnt in my life through the slides which I had shown, because it's the social aspect of your life which makes you face your profession very boldly. So at that point of time, I will call that post as a posting of paradox. On one hand, you were to, keep the character of the city, as Mili ma'am will like to say, and not spoil it. At the same time, follow the development policies of the city. Secondly, your creativity was challenged through the fantastic landscape environment of NDMC area, as well as the building design. At the same time, you had to hold a stick, rock solid, so that the character does not get spoiled, right from the sanction to completion, regulating the building during construction, as well as after that no misuse takes place, to demolition, the complete life cycle of the building. So here are two paradoxes, the creativity and the stick. Second paradox was that, this is a position which is rarely held by architects. That's the quasi-legal work that you do in NDMC. And you have to face the Supreme Court and the High Court and all the big builders so that, the architecture, the aesthetics, the sense and the sensibilities do not go out of order. And as a chief architect, you also have to be the face of the department in all the tough committees of the city, that is MCSC, the STF, the ease of doing business.
How old were you when you assumed this?
I was like in my 50s. Yeah. So that made you mature enough to face. There was a lot of public dealing as well, in which you had to face the most powerful as well as the most underprivileged people. And lastly, I would like to say that in that place, I really feel proud that I was part of that group which brought out the National War Museum as well as the National Police Museum, which celebrates the sacrifices made by the army or by the police through eternal flame, which burns here in every Indian's heart, and through honor kartavya path, where it makes you realize that this is the responsibility we have towards our country, as well as the sacrifices which have been made by the people.
Somebody else from NDMC here, right? Someone who introduced themselves a little while ago. No, I did meet somebody who's currently with NDMC. Right? Okay. Mili, would you like to tell us about your Maldives experience?
Oh, I think I already mentioned, so post-tsunami, we got this work from UN to look at 3 different, geographies where it was deeply impacted by tsunami. One was Maldives, one was in Sri Lanka, and the other was in Indonesia. And they were very different geographies. So for Maldives, there was this island which was, approachable only by this low height aircraft going over all they call this atolls. And so we reached there, and it was deeply impacted. But what I said was that when we talk about sustainability, and many of the projects that we see currently are that we are trying to save resources where we have abundance. But there are situations when there is no abundance, there is only limited resources, and you have to rely on local resources only. So how do you make optimized use of that is the criticality, and that is where sustainability has a very different meaning. So there what we saw was that, in terms of the local materials, use of how materials that were drenched out of sea, in terms of seashells, and those were also porous ones, so that added insulation and, the heat barriers to combat the heat, as well as looking at shallow water, rainwater harvesting to meet the water demand. So all of these things were very eye-opening to see how sustained. So that was an experience that also tell us how, how frugal innovations can help you to achieve sustainability. So like this, there are so many examples, but that was very eye-opening.
Lovely. Since we are on sustainability, and that seems to be a common thread in all the practices and the pedagogy as well. Hina, would you like to tell us about, you talked about democratization of city planning and transport planning and so on.
So this is a new role. After coming in academia particularly, I realized that sustainability, one of the three pillars, is also social sustainability and democratization. So I am privileged to be part of the main faculty for 3 of the master's courses program, where I, apart from taking the theoretical subjects, I also bring it up in studio and several thesis topics wherein you deliberately bring in the voices of everyone. Or for example, participatory planning project we take not for the elite colonies, but for urban villages. And there the kind of issues and the lenses we as architects and planners wear is completely different from the ground realities. And when you do this community planning and participatory planning, deliberately attempting to bring, to hear all kinds of voices, whether it's kids or women, and they come with all that gungat often, and you have to bring in, and the elderly people.
And how do you integrate this into your pedagogy as well?
So that, yeah, so we have designed the curriculum, we regularly revise the curriculum, and we move out of comfort zone. So initially the faculty members say, no, we can't go in that area or the others. So it's every semester it's a new challenge. So but the first step is that we brought in deliberately in the curriculum itself. So then it becomes a guiding, binding condition that you have to engage. So that's one way we attempt to do. And also Jamia, I represent Jamia Millia Islamia. For those who don't know, this university was very deeply engaged in the independence movement. So, and the location where Jamia is, it's all surrounded by several underprivileged, unplanned colonies, urban villages. So, and plus posh colonies as well, like the NFC. So, that gives us, it has been from the very beginning, and even in our vision statement, we keep regularly emphasizing architecture for masses. And not just because we realize that a lot of young architects, they want to become famous overnight, having that statement building design, and just, so that's the kind of thing we want to break in. And we deliberately at both undergraduate level, postgraduate level, and even in our recently introduced MDiS courses, MDiS program. So I have the privilege of starting 2 more departments. One is Department of Design and Innovation and Department of Planning. So there also we have attempted to consciously integrate.
Nice. So the other end of the spectrum really is probably the airports when you're talking about community engagement, small levels of planning. So you could talk about 2 things really. One is what are the challenges that you face when you're looking at such large projects, and maybe address
how important is sustainability in today's designs for airports?
Yeah, so the challenges in making an airport are many. Because first of all, the biggest challenge is getting so much of land. Whenever we are making an airport, we require about 2,000 to 3,000 acres of land for making an airport. And also the land, there are many criteria for the land, like it has to be a flat land, there has to be no water bodies there. So yeah. So there are many like environmental factors also, which because getting an environment clearance also is a big challenge for us. So that's one thing. Like if you're making, like I was just talking about the greenfield and the brownfield airport. So there are just two difference. But the difference between them is a greenfield is a totally new airport that you're making. Like you find a piece of land, and if it's suitable from all aspects, then we make an airport there. And the other is a brownfield airport, which is like an already developed airport, and you have to extend the runway, or you have to increase the capacity of the airport. So in both the airports, there are many challenges, like especially in the brownfield airport, again, land is again a problem, because the city develops around the airport, like in the case of Chennai airport, for example. So you have the city has grown all around the airport, and there is no space, and the runway can only be extended in one particular direction. So getting land is a big challenge for us. Then the aviation is the fastest growing thing in India. Basically, it's the fastest growing market in all over the world. Now all our airports, we have to increase the capacities of the airport, and technology comes that's one thing which is like helping us in overcoming that, because land is very scarce and it's very expensive also. And also getting land. So now, like for example, we did a study for Chennai airport, like how can we increase the capacity of the airport without getting the land. So we try to work out various options, and also within the airport, the capacity of the runway, the capacity of the apron, and the capacity of the terminal building, they have to be, like they all have to be in one line. Like you can't have the capacity of the terminal building if it's more and the runway is less, then it will not work that way. So there are many challenges. You have to like work it out, like how do you balance. Airport Authority, I joined in 1989. Yeah. That's how long it takes to so these are the challenges. Like then of course. The aeronautical instruments are also there, and there are a lot of where to place them, and how, because those are very technical details actually, because I think the architects over here would not know that so much about it. But all those things are also a big challenge whenever we are making any airport. So that is there. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Charul. Sonali, you spoke of the Forest Essentials building. I'm just curious, because we were always told in college that sustainability is not a separate topic or a subject, and every building needs to, all good architecture needs to be sustainable. So from that perspective, what is the philosophy at Morphogenesis, and how do you work on your projects?
So I'll go back to when Manit and I were studying at our master's degrees at the Architectural Association. So I was, of course, attracted to really what the A was famous for, which is really iconic, star architects, star-powered professors, and all of that stuff. So I immediately enrolled in DRL. And Manit went to study what is now called SED, then it was a different name, Sustainable and Environmental Design. And I was like, okay, Kinney's Burger dekha tha second year mein, so I don't know what you're going to spend a whole year and a half doing in this class, right? So that was my attitude. And Manit was absolutely convinced that this is the way forward. And I had never ever heard that there is a master's degree in such a thing, right? So anyway, we went down our individual education, and then whilst observing what he used to do and the solar models, and like we talked about pencil. So that time yeah, computation had limitations, and also, believe it or not, in a master's program in environmental design, he had to use cardboard and string and make a model of sun path. And I was like, what is happening? He's knitting cardboard with string, right? So I kind of got very intrigued. And ever since then, my interest grew by actually following his journey. And then when we came back to India and started Morphogenesis, we tend to, over wine, have a lot of philosophical discussions about where is this going, what is the vision of the practice, how do we see ourselves leading our life, what do we want to do, and we kind of set targets. In 5 years, we have to be doing this, and another 5 years, we have to be doing this. So in one of those sessions, maybe 5 years into Morphogenesis, we set a target, right? Everything at Morphogenesis will aim to consume less energy, whatever the methodology is, because, everything at Morphogenesis came from my frustration that, look, if we want to be doing this, we will be doing mud architecture, okay? And whilst all hats off to everybody who practiced it, but that's not my area of interest, okay? So I said, look, it can't be looking like barefoot architects or interested in mud architecture or this or that. I don't want to be classified as any one type of typical energy thinking architect. She says, what rubbish are you talking? I said, yeah, that's what I think. And then we said, okay, so we will do whatever we want to do, and it will have sustainability as its backbone of the way of thinking. So that's where that started. Then a couple of years later, we said, like, whatever we design, every client keeps saying, kam mein karo, ye karo, wo karo. So then we said, okay, then therefore we have to think about doing that, and that has to be called optimization. So it doesn't mean, and then again I said, kya matlab, then we will be only working like LIG housing, right? So he says, no, whatever we do, whatever it aims to do, will be done at a lower price. It's not that only low-cost architecture can be done at a lower price. Every architecture should be done at a lower price.
That's how they got their clients.
So that's how optimization came about. Then came, as a developing nation, new typologies. Like we started in 97, and that's when like a lot of newer typologies were opening up in this country. Before that, only government used to make buildings. Then developers came in, then lots of new typologies came in with liberalization. So that was also the time that everybody wanted to copy buildings in Dubai and buildings in New York. So we said there's going to be no copying, and therefore every project has to be unique. That's it. There's no copying. So anybody wants a photo and copy this, out. So unique got added to our philosophy. And then somewhere along the line, we started to question that why do people feel alienated from a lot of buildings? And we said because people who use that building really, not just the owner of the building, but everybody who uses that building, their design brief is absent. So if you don't use the design brief of every user, starting from the guy who has to clean it to the guy who owns it, it's not a livable building. And then the word L came in. So over the years, this philosophy of thinking was generated, which is called SOUL. And as she spoke about, Hina spoke about a little earlier about social sustainability. So during COVID, the sustainability became double S. So it became social sustainability because of how deeply impacted we were when we, from the reverse migration. And then when we saw interviews day after day on television, and most of those people walking back, or perhaps more than half, were actually construction workers, right? And so now sustainability is two-pronged at Morphogenesis, and otherwise it's optimization, unique and livable.
Nice to see someone articulate the company's philosophy so well, Mili, if I ask you to speak on sustainability, you can speak for 3 days at least, I guess. So, if you were to talk about how buildings, she talked about how sustainability is part of every building in their philosophy, and there are many
I mean, sustainability has become a career path in a sense. There are lead assessors, there are people who help incorporate just that sustainability angle into. So maybe a little light on that if you can throw on how that has changed things for.
Yeah, I think, like if I take my journey, so when we started looking at, like first few years of my career in TEDI, I have spent looking into energy consuming facility like the hospitality sector. And there the reason why the hotels wanted to save on energy was totally driven by cost, because again their cost of operations were deeply impacted by the cost of energy that they were spending on. So we worked a lot with the hotels, the Taj Group, the ITCs to help optimize costs and to kind of have their bottom line more, sustainable in terms of financial sustainability. And as you would know that as when we are trained as architect, we are not taught, system design. There's a very deep disconnect between mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and architecture. Those are side subjects. So the holistic understanding of how a building functions and what are the optimization points, you need to understand the building as an entity, not only what you do as, space typology or design. So that particular experience, gave me that integrated thinking or approach on how you can introduce cost optimization, energy optimization, water optimization, and all resource optimization, and provide better quality of living space, better indoor environmental quality in an integrated way. And by that time also, there was this big, in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was this big memorandum of understanding that happened between India government and US, where US government gave money to make the CII Godrej Green Business Center, and Mr. Godrej was also investing on that, and that was to be designed as a first lead building. And that time, it was very interesting one. Mr. Godrej personally took all the meetings and nobody knew what a green building rating system is. So I actually had to read each and every word. And that's also one thing I want to say, there is no shortcut to anything. Nowadays, we see a lot of younger students, doing Google copy paste and doing things. But unless you know the basics, you cannot master the subject. So you wouldn't believe, like I have spent hours, days, months mastering or understanding, how to use technology to simulate a building. Without doing that, you cannot do it. I read manuals, DOE manuals, understood the engineering part of it to do it. And then what happened was we did this, and after a lot of hue and cry, it got platinum, and it was an eye-opener that how building, the integrated thinking of sustainability can be imbibed through a rating system. And we had the visionary leader, Dr. Bochori, who said, okay, that is American. Whatever you are doing, you are. So that was also interesting that, when we submitted the first lead submittal, there the review came back saying, what is passive architecture? We don't know passive. Why have you modeled the building for 8 hours operational? You should never switch off the air conditioning. Why should you do it? So then this thinking about how you can imbibe this concept in an Indian way and introduce this and make more sustainable, that came in.
I remember many years ago when I think it was in Gulbarga, there was a police station that had been applied for the IGBC rating system. And it didn't make it to the platinum because it was not air conditioned, hence did not get points for it. And that's when it kind of got rewritten and...
yes, so that's what was the starting of Griha, and we wrote it with Indian context, and that was a whole journey that started, and kind of, now it's a national rating, and I'm very happy that... But now, interestingly, because I moved to LEED, so now, I'm trying to make LEED more conducive to all the geographies. Yeah.
See that. So I think we're busting many myths here. Usually it's I mean, there was a, Chakresh and me were talking about a video that was doing the rounds. I don't know how many of you got to see it, where young people were asked who they would go to for advice if they were buying a car between the parents, and almost all of them said they would go to their fathers and not their mothers.
and their mothers were CEOs of tech companies, and it was very strange that that finding came about. But here we are, we have 5 women who are extremely sound as far as sustainability and technology goes, and that's why they are here. So I think we're certainly busting that myth. Namrita, will you tell us 2 things? One is a little bit about when government started looking at sustainability seriously. I mean, yes, there was this, the CII center that got constructed, but when and how difficult was it to get the people in the system to start believing in it? And the second thing also is about the same thing about technology, BIM. When did we start looking at it within the government?
If I really go back into a little bit of past, then I find that earlier the FAR of the buildings used to be less. And the buildings, especially the government buildings, were never taller than 1 story or 2 story. And none of the buildings had air conditioning. They were all like cooled by a fan, that's it. And the staff were quite used to, that kind of environment. Then after a few years, the cooler made into picture. And people started, the workforce in the government environment started getting used to the cooler, and they used to feel discomforted when a person didn't have a cooler. So the picture started to change when the FAR in the 2000, I think I remember 2005s and 4s. That was the time I was in Punjab, and the first time the FAR became 3. And we were suddenly looking at, multi-story buildings, and we were looking at firefightings. I still remember one incident. For our first multi-story building, we went to see the fire officer. What we should incorporate into the building so that, it becomes, safe. And he picked up the phone, he got pakoras from the market, he asked his person to get tea for us. He says, these are the first architects who have visited my office, So I think that is a landmark point, I think, when, all these firefighting and the air conditioning and the multi-story and the lifts and the other things started making an appearance in the buildings. And that is the time I think the green crept in. Because we moved away from, that single story and climbing the staircases and other things. So,
this is going to be a free-flowing section on technology. Anybody who wants to ask questions, just put your hands up. There are some.
The second question. Yes. So that I had formed a part of another this thing, but I'll bring it here. You see, it's very difficult to ask a mother that who's her favorite child. So I am very fond of urbanization, having worked quite a bit in urbanization, and secondly, I'm also very fond of metro. Why I'm fond of metro? Because it taught me when to leave the pencil and when to begin with the, technology. Reason being that metro is a very deeply, technologically, very superior, mega structure-wise, very, ultimate. And it cannot be done without technology like BIM and Revit and other things. So I feel that, maybe I came to Delhi and worked in metro. And that's the place where I started appreciating technology, the man-machine interface, and so on and so forth.
Charul, if I was to ask you the same thing as far as airports go. I sometimes wonder how they were even conceptualized when we didn't have technology, really.
Yeah, so the airports also have got a major change. Like they've changed so much to technology, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. So earlier, they were, because the technology was not there, the processes also at the airport used to take a very long time. People nowadays, because they're now you have the Digi Yatra, and then you have the, the other things which are all, technologically savvy. So there are the processes have become much faster, and also the spaces required for them is much lesser than what it used to be before. And as far as sustainability is concerned, like maybe even before, like say, I can say 5 or 6 years before also, we used to not think about it so much. But now, we are much ahead in that. In fact, we also have an environment policy in place, and all our airports, like because since airports are a major, they take away a chunk of land from people, and a lot of people displaced, and there are other factors as well. So we are doing a lot with our, for the environment, as also with the policy. Like the net zero buildings are coming up with the airports, and also the green fuel and renewable energy, and all those things, whatever is required for sustainability is being used in airports. And like most of our airports now, the buildings that are the recently new buildings that are coming up, we are all making sustainable buildings and taking care, that all these factors are there. And also with Griha we've already, all the public buildings have to be Griha compliant, yeah. So all the buildings are, we are basically working for a Griha 5 ratings in most of the buildings. So, with this, I think there is a lot of changes which has come up, and I'm sure in the future it's going to be better. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience on technology and deployment? Anything that any of you would like to ask? I have a question for Sonali on the pitfalls or the problems you're facing in deploying BIM across.
Yes, yes.
I'm sure they want to hear.
See, as a firm, one of the things we love to say is that we provide the best technology for our clients, or use of technology for our clients. Now, we, as Chakresh is aware, have always been one of the early adopters of whether it's a new upgraded version of AutoCAD or Revit, and we've always been the early adopters. But what happens is, I think, I like to draw an analogy a little bit with Zoom calls or Teams, right? I think it's the same problem. Like Zoom existed, like I had used it 7 years before COVID. Okay, and this was simply because I was part of some network which is American, and then therefore our meetings were on Zoom. Okay, that's why I knew about Zoom, no other reason, only because of this one organization which I was part of. Now, Teams was already there on a computer, and nobody knew that it exists along with the software already, right? But now, now I come around, now people will invest in communication software. Okay, because they understand it reduces time and improves efficiency for certain type of meetings. Okay, like if I need to discuss for 5-minute thing with an engineer, I don't have to travel all the way, sit in my office, have tea, coffee, biscuit, talk to this thing for a 5-minute issue, right? So I don't have to travel, get on a flight as much to go to a client now, because a lot of things can happen virtually, and his or her time is also freed up, and so is mine to actually be more creative. Same thing is with BIM, I feel. We keep buying the software, but the rest of the ecosystem has no awareness that it exists.
30%, so 70% doesn't.
No, I don't agree with that 30% figure. They may have sold software to 30% of the end users. Whether they use it or they don't use it, I'll tell you now, I bought it for 10 years without using it. He was very convincing, so I bought it. And then didn't use it.
So maybe doing a survey is important, Chakresh, to find.
So I think the problem lies in it's twofold. One is that we just think, okay, architect adopts it and that's sufficient, but it isn't. Bulk of the engineers don't use it. They don't use it not because they're not smart, they're definitely smarter than architects are most of the time, but because they have to invest in other software. They have to invest in ETAPs and lots of simulation software. They don't get paid enough at 10 rupees a square foot to go and buy that and buy this, right? So they're not going to waste the energy in doing this. So it's one industry which uses different softwares that have just about started to speak to each other, whereas actually they should be unified. They're just about getting to speak to each other. You can plug in something and kind of look at e-tabs, but not really. Not really. It's really painful. So then let's say that part is over. You go to site contractors. So not everybody is a L&T or Tata Projects or something, right? Not everybody has in-house architectural teams. Okay, so who the hell is going to provide the shop drawing in BIM? And that contractor, who's the L1 usually, especially when the government appoints them, then how is that L1 contractor ever going to afford this software and the full-time people who can operate it? So no shop drawing is coming which can be plugged into my model. So why am I going to do the contractor's work, barely getting fees for my work, leave alone cover his work on top of that, right? Then comes various, like let's say modules that get provided to me by proprietary items. They don't come in BIM. So what do I do when I want to fit a hinge there which is not coming in BIM? How do I get it into that model, right? So therefore now I can say I can only offer it up to clash detection. As it is, I'm doing concept design in Google SketchUp, then only to do 2 stages in BIM, especially when you're not getting paid to do it, because the fees have stayed the same with or without BIM, right? Then another magical figure has come up, third-party integrator, new profession, right? So everybody has to provide a 2D drawing to them, and they are supposed to integrate it, okay? In that integration, quality of design is lost. Because when I'm sitting and struggling between structure fouling with the size of window I want and some MEP fouling, then if I am as an architect drawing that, then I'm also figuring creatively the solution. A third-party integrator is not figuring any solution. So then I'm getting badly coordinated architecture, well-coordinated BIM. Okay, that's not the purpose of my profession. So I think the cost factor. So you ask a starting practice today whether they'll work on BIM? Absolutely not. Okay, the cost of licenses and every year renewing them is too high for a starting practice. But the barrier to entry for them to use student software is nil, right? So it's easier to keep like escaping all the auditors that come from Autodesk and to continue doing this instead. Because when they're starting and they're earning literally nothing on fee, to spend on software is really hard. So I think I'm telling you that even people in their 50s, firms which are 8 to 10 people are absolutely not using, they're using pirated software. Absolutely, even today. It's not affordable. People are barely meeting salaries, leave alone doing this. So I think there is a general awareness required as Zoom and Teams happened. The general awareness required in clients, engineers, construction professionals, contractors, manufacturers, that this is the way forward, which is going to bring in efficiency and is going to bring in cost saving and accuracy. However, to do that, the general financial health of the entire system needs to improve.
Namrita, you were talking about how technology and BIM introduces transparency. I'd like you to speak a little bit on that.
The biggest problem in government is, especially in the metro system, that when an officer or a person or this thing leaves that post and is posted out, he has to surrender his computer to the center system, which was not happening in other places where I was working. So whatever data was inside the computer stayed with that division. So in metro, what happens is that the data, since he has to surrender the system to the center pool, the data also goes with that. So one very positive thing I'm finding about BIM is that at least we have a virtual cloud where all this data is staying safe. Today I was looking for SOD drawing. SOD is schedule of dimensions, on which absolutely metro is built, which is the base, the soul, and the skeleton system of the entire thing. And why I came to metro, after looking here and there, hither and thither and other place, I could not arrange the AutoCAD drawings of SOD, Schedule of Dimension, which has been repeatedly passed for different cities like Delhi or Lucknow or Chennai or Kochi or whatever. So if this BIM system is there and the cloud is there at least somewhere, the data is safe. Second advantage, why I find that it is very transparent, is that that in the normal government system, the things move in a file. You put the drawings and then, they move from table to table. You put the signature and other things. But by the end of it all, where does it get dumped? Because the files become like a mountain. Either you make your staff sit there or your file sit there. So where that goes, I really don't know. In government, there is a weeding system also, that after 5 years or 8 years, you weed out the record as per government instructions. And what are you losing? We are losing very, very technically detailed drawings, which cannot be reproduced ever. So in that respect, I find that in BIM, when you put up a drawing and it is commentated and it is shared and it goes to DDC, to the contractor and other, every inch of drawing, every word written by this thing is available, and it greatly enhances the transparency and the working capacity of the government. I highly recommend BIM for government employees.
Thank you so much, Namrita. I think we are really short on time. I'm sure all of you are desperately hungry. It's the theme is power of our ideas, so I have to talk about.
I have a very follow-up question.
Okay, as long as you're willing to wait for dinner.
That too. So this is actually a two-part question, and this goes out to Sonali ma'am, basically. So what you talked about was that if I had to define BIM, it's basically delivering my project digitally in a virtual space so that I can foresee problems. Right? That's what we're doing right now. And if I had to look at it through a sustainable point of view, my opinion of sustainability, and this may come out bad, so don't take me wrong, is basically making buildings just less bad, right? Making buildings just less bad, right? And how at Morphogenesis you are actually, how are you doing things differently? And if I could get some words from you on that point, basically.
I described our philosophy of doing things. I mean, I don't know how differently, but doing things the way we do it.
This could be a sustainable question as to how does sustainability actually works, because we do end up creating virtual energy models, but what is that we do during the design process that contributes to the sustainable?
So that's a very long question, and I don't think people will wait. I don't think people will wait, but I will add to I'll see this from the BIM perspective. I think whilst I may have sounded like it's not adopted enough and this and that, because it's like a pet peeve with me that it should be adopted, I think it's actually adopting that is actually sustainable also in many ways, because like Namrita said, that otherwise data is lost, people are working on different things, wrong things are getting built. So it's a very important tool. And also, I know that some sustainability software is already incorporated and certain amount of modeling can already be done within it. So I'm aware of that. Earlier we used to use Ecotech separately and all of that. So I think anyway, building in, as much as building a building requires you to think sustainability, otherwise it's just a failed exercise. Similarly, I think the software, because software is what? It's an extension of our mind, really. Software is not designing the building. It's an extension of all your sensibilities together, right? It's your pencil. So if sustainability simulation is built into the software, which I'm aware it is, okay, then I think it's just the best way forward. Only thing is, I think, like it's the world of media advertising, I think Capricorn needs to advertise how beneficial it is for the general public if their products are built using sustainable tools, and if the professional is seen as a deliverer together with that tool. Like so many things are advertised around the world. Why why is this software not advertised as beneficial to everybody, beneficial to the entire built environment to work through this tool? So if it becomes general awareness, then all my earlier peeves will be resolved.
Capricorn wants to answer. Farag. Oh, you have a question.
We have someone better to also answer. Sitting very quiet. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Add one thing to Sonali's this thing is that of course the cost of Revit or BIM is higher at this point of time. But as the families get on built in this system, like escalator people, they do their modeling once, and the lift they do it once, then slowly we'll find that the cost is actually coming down of project designing. So this is a pain which we'll have to go through to enjoy the fruits of this hard work, and the price may go down.
So, adding to that, ma'am, so like I actually have this genuine question actually. So I compare software with car. So in car, okay. So in 2015, I bought a car for 10 lakh rupees. The same car right now is worth, if you go and buy a car, which was 10 lakh in 2015, now if you go, it will be for like 20 lakhs, 18 to 20 lakhs. That is the inflation that has happened in the auto industry. And like ma'am, you said ki when firm is starting, they, architects start to practice. So they don't want to spend on software. So, but where they want to spend? So which is the favorite car of architects? Which is the favorite car of architects? What they dream when they start the practice, or just to impress the clients? BMW, Mercedes. Not starting, but at least when they second hand, or just to impress the client. But what I want to say ki
Not the architect who doesn't want to be. Architects love it, yeah, the better the software, the better the computer. It is the entire industry that doesn't support that. If you can't meet salaries, you can't think about higher software.
I think you should sell the process rather than the software.
So specifically for Autodesk product, like I have been using since last more than a decade. So what I have figured out, like every time you like Autodesk upgrades software, it requires a new system. I think everyone will agree to this thing. Recently Autodesk launched Revit 2024, right? And now they are asking to upgrade the system for 16 GB minimum as a RAM. So even a government department having so much funds, they are not agreeing to upgrade the laptops, the systems. So this is what when naive architects, they are just freshly coming out of the college, or even after 5 years of practicing or 10 years of practicing, even his own laptop is not gonna increasing the RAM in GBs. So it's actually a valued question for everyone that software is getting upgraded.
That really is another debate which talks about the state of architecture and the salaries and things like that also, in a sense.
It's like sustainability of an architect or architecture firm basically.
is another story or another ball game altogether. But I think we must close this now. Dinner's waiting, and this session was called Power of Her Ideas, and I think we have 5, including me, maybe 6 superwomen here. And I often think of, I keep thinking about the fact that not everybody has that courage or strength to be, and I think that's where some of us could probably get down to colleges like Hina's, meet students, talk to them about how they can be different, how they can be more courageous, and how they can probably build their lives, because our society kind of has these built-in biases, and it's something that we fight. And another discussion we were having, which maybe for another day, is how to make the workplace safe, the safe space really for all of us, because sometimes even homes are not safe. So at least if workplaces can be safe, it becomes a refuge. So with that, I think Chakresh has a few things to say, and then we'll conclude and have a good dinner.
In fact, today here we were more to listen, so that I didn't, therefore, and it was a very, very interesting session to listen directly from each of us. And there is one person I like to invite, Mr. Alok Sharma, who's been listening to all of you very quietly. He heads the architectural division of Autodesk here. And I'd like to invite him to, maybe you'd like to speak a little bit from whatever you've heard. And in fact, a few days back we were talking, and Alok wanted, like, can we have a session where a lot of our users of technology can come and speak? And I think today you got that kind of an opportunity.
No, first of all, thank you, Chakreshi. I think, thank you for inviting me personally, and it's very inspiring, seriously. And, whatever Sonali you shared, I've taken all the feedback. In fact, my colleague was also there, I think she had to leave. So I won't reply to any of those. I take all feedback, whether it's on pricing, whether it's on enabling, and we love all this feedback. And even on product, I think some of it got answered here, but we really love all the feedback coming from you. And very inspiring, both the personal part of it and the professional part of it. And expect invite coming from Autodesk. I would love, at Autodesk, we have something called as AWN, Autodesk Women Network. I personally drive a diversity chapter within Autodesk, and I will reach out to you, invite you as a guest to come and speak. So that's it. I think it's time for dinner. I don't do.
So Alok will request you to facilitate all our panelists. So Shweta, if you can. So it was a very, very interesting session, and I'm sure all the audience present here and online have heard. And it was today's, it also brings what's the current issues we are facing amongst architecture and society in general. And of course, the biggest theme.
An excellent moderator. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Box में दो ना. So, Alok. Doctor.
Wow.
Can take. Thank you very much, madam. Sorry, they're all kept in box, so they got mixed up. Gita, yeah. Sonali. She's been pushing BIM now in all the government departments wherever she goes, especially for all large infrastructure projects. Sonali is probably icon of all young architects nowadays. Thank you very much. So we have some awards to give to the prizes for.
Who got the prizes? You got one, right?
Maybe Gita, you can.
No, BIL actually Charul answered, but
Give it to- Yeah, please come.
But 30% is the wrong answer.
No, actually, what the way we look at it is in any phase of the project. See, many times, like as a technologist, we prefer that you use it end to end. But it is not happening. And we say, okay, you start from wherever is your biggest challenge. You at least start using and then expand to other stages.
And the third one, anybody here, or it goes to Sonali?
So any last comment, Gita, from you? No. So thank you, Gita. She flew all the way from Calcutta for this session today.
I'd just like to say these women do not have attitude, they have high standards. So,
So thank you. So we'll invite everyone for drinks and dinner.